here. There you go. How about that? Now you can hear me. Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Hope you're well today. So 24 days in our countdown to the end of through the end of this cycle, and then we begin the new cycle. So what will happen over the course of the next 24 days? Well, that's what makes it exciting. Don't you think this is an exciting time? I think this is an exciting time because of all the opportunities and possibilities that are existing out in the world today. All right, here we go. Spaceweather.com. Our solar wind is 424.4 kilometers per second. Planetary K index at the moment is at a 1, which is quiet. Nothing more expected in the next 24 hours. And we see our M-class flares, 35%. And geomagnetic storm activity is pretty much next to nothing. Well, 35% if you're in the high latitudes, but if you're in your low latitudes, only 25% chance you're going to see something active. Again, what that means, have your cameras ready. You might see something cool in the sky, some cool colors and what have you. All right, moving from the space weather on over to astrology for today. We're at the same sun sign, Sagittarius, so we're there for a while. So fire on the outside, the conscious mind. Unconscious, though, you could see we are in between signs. So between two signs is called void of course, simply because we're transitioning from one element into the next, and therefore there's a cancellation that takes place because neither element is the primary one. They're both kind of changing of the guard. So until the guard shifts, we're in that in-between void. Void of course moon is what it's called. Void of course moon. And the transition is going from Taurus, an earth sign, to Gemini, an air sign. So going from earth to air. Earth, the practical way in which we use energy. Air, the way in which we communicate this energy. So we're moving into a period where our unconscious is wanting to communicate out into the world, find a way to express ourselves. And remember, the fire on the outside, the Sagittarian energy, is challenging us to look for a little bit higher education, higher learning, higher teachings, higher wisdoms, looking for something a little bit more than just the average run-of-the-mill stories, looking for something that has a little bit more oomph to it, a little bit more importance. Jupiter's the planet that's involved, which is the planet of expansion, so that's what we're doing. And it's appropriate because we are in an expansive time right now on the planet energetically with all that's going on. All right, so that's what's going on. We have this eclipse coming up tomorrow, the lunar eclipse, so we'll be ready for that. Our current moon phase, we're just about there, 99% of the way, so we will be there tomorrow. And then when we go to our Mayan Oracle, we're at a beginning of a new wave spell. We just ended the wave spell of the dog. Now we're at the wave spell of the night, N-I-G-H-T. The night is all about dreams and abundance. Dreams and abundance. So what we've got here is a wave spell of 13 days, and it's all the theme right here. So this next 13 days is themed according to the idea of the night, about dreams and abundance. And so these are 13 aspects along the way of dreams and abundance. And it takes us all the way to the end, which is the vision of dreams and abundance. And we take that vision and we're going to fly with it to the next wave spell. All right? Our phrase for today, or backtrack, we got the magnetic tone, we got the night, guided by the night, because ones are always the same, kin and guide. And then the supporting cast members. On this side is our challenging. Our challenge is exploration. Our like-minded energy is the warrior, the ability to question what's going on in the world. And our hidden power, or the occult kin, is endlessness. That the idea of the mirror, looking in the mirror, the reflection back to us. We provide an endless reflection going back and forth, the endlessness of life. Life is always reflecting to us like a mirror. So if we can learn not to take life so personally and emotionally when things are done, but we look at them as a reflection of us, then it helps us to understand a little bit more what it is that we're saying, thinking, or doing by just paying attention to the reflections all around us each and every day. Our phrase for today: I unify in order to dream, attracting intuition. I seal the input of abundance with the magnetic tone of purpose. I am guided by my own power doubled. And of course, on the Gregorian calendar, it is the 27th of November. You can see we're on a new column here. So we're along the way. Tomorrow we're going to be at one of those activation portal days where we're going to be the fourth down, fourth over, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, that is our cosmic weather for today. So 24 days to close out this cycle, and there's been a lot of videos, a lot of cool stuff that's been played to really talk about this whole period of time. So this next piece follows in suit with all of that. This is an interview, and it's a long interview. It's an hour long. I'm only going to play 10 minutes of this, but you'll get a good gist of this 10 minutes, what's going on. This is Graham Hancock. He's one of the foremost researchers of the pyramids and the Sphinx. He's written a number of books. One of them is called Fingerprints of the Gods. And here he is talking about 2012, but not directly December 21st, but the process going on, the precession of the equinoxes that is taking place. So this is a good explanation because this is what's going on. We're coming to the end of this cycle through the whole precession, getting ready to begin anew. So here we go. Enjoy this, and I think you're going to find it very informative. Maybe you've already heard this, maybe not. Here we go.
So look, scientists, historians today are of the opinion that knowledge of the precession of the equinoxes is relatively recent, that we discovered this astronomical phenomenon or observation not much more than 2,000 years ago. But this idea of modern historians, in my opinion, is completely wrong, because all over the world, in ancient mythology and ancient texts, we find eerily and mysteriously recurring the same series of numbers and the same images of a gigantic rotating machine, sometimes referred to as a mill, operating in the heavens, which periodically breaks. Now, the precession of the equinoxes is a process that unfolds at the rate of 1 degree every 72 years, and the number 72 is a key indicator of knowledge of precession. And that number may sometimes be divided by 2 to make 36. The 36 may be added to 72 to make 108. The 108 may be divided by 2 to make 54. You have multiples of these numbers. It doesn't matter how many zeros you add on to the end. And you will find in ancient mythology from Scandinavia, from China, from India, from Europe, from all over the world, mythology which is clearly thousands of years old, the mysterious repetition of these numbers. So, for example, in ancient Egypt, the texts that refer to the god Osiris tell us that he was killed by 72 conspirators. The Rig Veda, the fundamental text of ancient India, contains 432,000 syllables. These are all numbers that relate to the precession of the equinoxes. We find references to precession in the Bible. For example, the number 144, which is twice 72. And I need to emphasize that it is not simply me who is saying this. An enormous study was carried out in the 1950s and 1960s by two leading professors of the history of science, Professor Giorgio de Santillana, who was professor of the history of science at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Hertha von Deschent, who was professor of the history of science at the University of Frankfurt. And in their book, Hamlet's Mill, they document in enormous detail the endless, detailed recurrence of this sequence of numbers in mythology and ancient texts all over the world. And they reached the conclusion that the only explanation for the presence of these numbers is that, quote unquote, some almost unbelievable ancestor civilization had observed and precisely measured this astronomical process called the precession of the equinoxes, had felt that it was important for mankind to know this, and had encoded it in myths and stories so that it would be passed down by storytellers generation by generation for thousands of years, as long as stories continued to be told. And it actually didn't matter whether the storyteller understood that he was relating information about precession or not. All he had to do was tell the story true, and the information would be there. And by the way, it's not only in ancient texts, but it's in ancient monuments as well. For example, the Great Pyramid, if you take its height and multiply it by 432,000, you get the exact measurement of the polar radius of the Earth. And if you measure the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 432,000, you get the exact measurement of the equatorial circumference of the Earth. This cannot be a coincidence because of the scale used, 1 to 432,000. This is one of those numbers that are related in mythology and texts all over the world to the precession of the equinoxes. One of the mysteries that has concerned me in my research is the astonishing similarity of themes and information in myths and traditions from all over the world. For example, it is really quite surprising to find in the mythologies of many different cultures, from the ancient Maya to the ancient Egyptians to the ancient Indians, the notion that the gods came down from heaven to earth, came from the stars, if you like, and sometimes even from specific star systems, such as the constellation of Orion or the Pleiades, and that they brought wisdom to earth. The only conclusion I can come to is that all of these similar myths share a remote common ancestor, that at some time deep in prehistory there was a diffusion of ideas all around the world, and that this was a deliberate process designed to present information to the future and to preserve that information in a very clever way by encoding it in wonderful stories that people would want to go on telling to each other down the generations. And as a result, even today, thousands of years later, we find these similarities in the DNA of myths and traditions all around the world. The date of 10,500 BC, roughly, give or take 50 or 100 years, that's 12,500 years ago, is a date that has come up again and again in my research. It comes up fundamentally in the architecture of the gigantic and mysterious monuments of the Giza Plateau in Egypt, by which I mean the three great pyramids and the great Sphinx of Egypt. These monuments appear to have been laid out on the ground in relation to the River Nile to capture or freeze or preserve or memorialize a specific moment in time. Because of the phenomenon of the precession of the equinoxes, the stars in the sky change their positions very, very slowly down the years. This is actually not because of the movements of the stars themselves, but because of the movements of our planet Earth. Planet Earth is the platform from which we observe the stars, and there is a slow wobble on the axis of the Earth, rather like the kind of wobble that occurs when a top is set spinning and begins to slow down. And that wobble on the axis of the Earth changes our orientation in relation to the stars at particular times of year, very, very slowly over a 26,000 year cycle. So, for example, if you imagine the extended north pole of the Earth, presently in our time, it points to the star Polaris. That is our pole star. But in the past, because of the precession, the pole star has been other than Polaris. Sometimes the north pole of the Earth has pointed at empty space, and sometimes it has pointed at different stars as it performs a great circle in the heavens, taking just under 26,000 years to complete. And this also affects the familiar constellations of the zodiac, the 12 constellations of the zodiac, and their relationship to the rising sun at the spring equinox every year, the time when night and day are of exactly equal length, which is the 21st of March in the northern hemisphere. And that's why we talk about, for example, we live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. What that means is that in our age, if you stand an hour before dawn on the 21st of March and look perfectly due east, where the sun will rise on that day, but before the sun rises, you will see that the constellations of Pisces and Aquarius are lying on the horizon in the direction that you're looking. And what's happening is that they're rotating around in relation to the rising point of the sun. And for the last 2,000 years, the sun has been rising in Pisces, but it's now moving into the constellation of Aquarius. And that's what that song means. We live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. If you were to go back thousands of years, you would find that there was a period roughly from 4000 BC to 2000 BC when the sun rose in the constellation of Taurus, the bull, on the spring equinox. And after that, it was in the constellation of Aries, the ram, from 2000 BC to the time of Christ. And then from the time of Christ to the present day, as I say, it's been in the constellation of Pisces, the fish, and it's about to move into Aquarius. Not only the zodiacal constellations, but the exact position and orientation of all the other stars in the sky is also affected by this phenomenon called precession of the equinoxes. Now, I need to tell you this so that you understand what I'm going to say about the Giza Plateau. It has been well established by my colleague, the engineer and archaeoastronomer Robert Bauval, in his book, The Orion Mystery, that there is an astonishing resemblance between the pattern of the three great pyramids on the ground at Giza and the pattern of the three stars of Orion's belt. And we need to understand immediately that the constellation of Orion was not just any old constellation to the ancient Egyptians. It was actually the most important constellation in the sky. And when they looked at the constellation of Orion, they saw it as the figure of their god, Osiris. So this constellation was extremely important to the ancient Egyptians. And there are many references in ancient Egyptian texts, the pyramid texts, the Book of the Dead, and so on, which speak of the need, a mysterious need to copy on the ground the patterns of the stars in the sky, and which tell us that a great secret is hidden in the sky, in the hidden circle of the sky. Now, what's interesting is that not only do the three stars of Orion's belt, do the three pyramids represent, obviously it's immediately obvious to the naked eye, anybody can see it, that the three pyramids have a pattern that's very similar to the pattern of the three stars of Orion's belt, and this is true in any age. But if you go back in time, and we can do this with modern computer software, There's excellent software now which incorporates all the movements of the precession of the equinoxes, and we have the privilege today on our computers of being able to see any sky at any time during the past 30,000 years over any point in the Earth's surface. And so if you set your computer software to Giza and start winding back the skies, you'll find that changes take place in the orientation of the constellation of Orion until you get to 10,500 BC, 12,500 years ago. And then the obvious resemblance of the three belt stars to the three pyramids becomes perfect.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. So good stuff, right? Continuing on here. Continuing on. Okay, first UFO story. This was a UFO or flying in the sky above Argentina on the 24th. So the strange UFO was caught on tape on Saturday. The witness stated that the ship was realizing movements in the sky like reading. 26 seconds it crosses with a star observed that in the second one begins to obvious changes in its path. So we've seen the orb before. All right. There we go. We got another one. All right. So what are those? Don't know, but the video is available. All right. Over California, Los Angeles, California. Looks like a shot from Baywatch, huh? There you go, up in the sky there. And the story goes on to say this UFO was accidentally recorded during sunset. I know I say this a lot, but it's true. We have many new viewers to our site. Best time to catch UFOs is to watch the sunset because UFO cloaks can only bend light 180 degrees before they become visible. Since the sun is setting, the cloaks will have to bend light around the ship at 270 degrees, causing them to be visible until the sun disappears. Alright, does that make sense to you? You understand the idea? Alright, so as we move along here. Accidentally captured it here towards the end. Let's see. Alright. It's a little bit tougher to see here, but when you make it full screen, it's a lot easier to see what's going on there. But the image in question is, you saw it. Okay, cylindrical craft attempts to shape-shift into helicopter. Now this is a new one. A witness has reported seeing a cylindrical shape-shifting craft in Oxford, Mississippi on the 16th of November around 10:30 p.m. This report has been obtained from a testimony included in the MUFON database. Published on the 21st of November, the witness begins the report by describing where and how he and his mother saw the object. While I was driving my mother to the doctor's office in Oxford, she suddenly pointed up and asked me what that is. We were driving west on Highway 278 and she was looking upward in the front passenger window. He further talks about its direction and shape. Went on to say, I looked in the direction above by leaning over the steering wheel. There was a rounded cylindrical object hovering over the treetops to the north side of the road. After that, he gives us more information how the object looked. He said it had two small, round, ball-shaped objects floating a good distance above it, and oddly looked like two large birds were circling below the cylinder-shaped object. The cylinder was parallel to the tree line. At first, I thought it was a blimp. Then I looked again and saw that it was not, and the object was not moving, just hovering over the trees at a height of 100 feet or more. I quickly looked back at it a couple of times, and when I did, a strange thing occurred. The image tried to morph into what resembled a helicopter, except there was no rotor shaft coming out of the top of the object, and there was no propeller blades and no landing struts. At the next glance to this scene, I suddenly thought I saw a yellow state trooper symbol on the side of the object. Finally, he tells us how he and his mom disagreed about the object in the mirror. Anyway, very interesting how they saw it, and the kids saw it described as shape-shifting. So, very interesting. Okay, now here's a good good example of positive things that happen when people are abducted. There's a lot of abduction scenarios that go on, and I know that Hollywood really sensationalizes a lot of what goes on. But the stories that you hear from those who are involved are oftentimes different. Oftentimes, those who've been abducted tell you stories that something psychically has changed in them, or they have some sort of new gift that they didn't have before. So, in this regard, Beijing UFO research investigates alien abduction and the alien technology that cured the girl. 13 years ago, on a freezing winter evening in December, a middle-aged man, surnamed Cao, from Beijing claimed to have been abducted by aliens and to have cured a Chinese girl using alien energy in Qinghangdo, Hebei province. His account was met with both skepticism and trust, but Zhang Jingping was one of the only people who devoted time and energy to investigating the matter. Zhang, 43, director of the investigation department of the World Chinese UFO Association and owner of a private advertising company, launched an independent investigation into the case in 2000. Zhang, a firm believer in UFOs, believes Kyle's case is a most reliable of all the cases he investigated. The prevailing opinion among scientists is that UFOs do not exist because they can't explain these strange phenomena. But as more and more people show interest in studying aliens, I believe our efforts will eventually pay off, he told the Global Times. So, that healing opportunity, that's something that, read the article. It's a long article you'll see here. But this is what is heard of in the real stories that you hear from many of those who have been abducted, that their abilities of different types. So, it's very interesting, very fascinating, the divide between the stories you hear from those who are in the field of ufology and UFO research and those who are in the field of sensationalizing that kind of stuff. Very different indeed. All right, that's our UFO news. I'm going to jump away for about 10-15 seconds. I will be right back. I've got a lot more. Stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of them.
All right. So, I'm going to turn my attention for a few moments here to the President of the United States. Now, there's been a lot of talk over the 4 years of his first term, and I'm sure there's going to be more talk going into the next term about whether or not he deserves to be there. Oftentimes, this conversation comes up when there are presidents in office, and it's not only presidents, but we know from city to city the examples of politicians who are doing things and people who don't agree with them, and there's always this issue. But this one has been going on for some time, and there are a lot of strange things and coincidences surrounding Obama that has a lot of people bringing up questions. So I'm going to bring up a few of these. I know some of you out there say that the Obama bashing and stuff is, people don't understand it. I'm not trying to do any bashing. I'm just trying to point stuff out here. Very important things that we need to pay attention to. It's either pay attention to these things or put on some blinders and pretend these things don't exist. Since these things do exist, I choose not to wear the blinders and to be aware of them. And I feel it's important that I share this, which is why I'm telling these stories. So this one here shows a 1989 or 1896 New York Tribune where it talked about the citizenship issue. Those born of non-citizen parents may not be eligible for POTUS, President of the United States. Back in 1896, the issue of whether a citizen who was not born of U.S. citizen parents, could be the president, it was discussed in the Tribune. Goes on to say the question as to whether the Labor candidate for the presidency would, if chosen by a majority of the electoral vote, be entitled under the Constitution to take his seat is one which, since his nomination at Chicago, has been frequently and freely discussed, but not satisfactorily disposed of. The facts which are fully admitted by both parties in regard to Mr. Sherman are these, namely, that his parents, Joanna Sherman and Barbara, his wife, reached New York by the sailing ship Hamburg of the Black Ball Line on the 18th of August, 1848, as German immigrants, and that on the following day, in the lodging house at number 5 Greenwich Street, the present Labor candidate for the presidency of the United States was born. He is under these circumstances a natural-born citizen in the sense implied by the 5th clause of Act 2 of the Constitution. Various attorneys generals of the United States have expressed the opinion that a child born in this country of alien parents who have not been naturalized is by fact of birth a native-born citizen entitled to all rights and privileges as such, and the State Department has always acted on the presumption in deciding upon questions of the nature brought before it. There is, however, no United States statute containing any provision on the subject, nor have any judicial decisions ever been made which in regards is at best an open question, and that which should have made Mr. Sherman's nomination under any circumstances an impossibility. Fortunately, the result of the campaign appears no longer doubtful, yet to the misguided voters of the Labor Party, even when led by the forlorn hope of the polls, it would no doubt be a consolation to know that they were casting their votes for a candidate concerning whose eligibility no possible question could be afterward raised. Well, it's very interesting, and obviously this issue has come around because here we've got a situation of someone in Chicago, and here we've got a president from Chicago, and we're dealing with the same issue. So to me, this seems to kind of show that when we don't deal with particular issues in life, they come back around, so we get an opportunity to deal with them again. We didn't deal with this before, now we're in a situation. But it goes on further. Here is painting depicts Obama as crucified Christ. Now, I don't know what you think about this, but I think this is absolutely blasphemous. Absolutely blasphemous. A painting that features President Obama posed as Jesus Christ crucified is on display at the Community College Art Gallery in Boston. The painting by Michael D'Antuono is part of a larger exhibit called Artist on the Stump, The Road to the White House. It's on display at Bunker Hill Community College Art Gallery. Well, Obama isn't Christ. He's not going to be Christ. He shouldn't be put up on a pedestal and photographed as Christ. His actions are very anti-Christ-like. So, do you see how this fits into the puzzle? Here you've got, and this isn't just the first time, there's other pictures out there. You see the ones that the White House does, and on Time magazine and other magazine covers, you see him with this kind of halo around his head. Try to make him out to be very Christ-like. But his actions are not the actions that Christ would take if Christ was alive on this planet. Therefore, his actions are Christ-like, while at the same time he is allowing his image to go out and be taken and put out there as being a Christ figure, and actually mimicking some of the Christ-like activities that we know of associated to Jesus. So, not a good trend. Just another one of the pieces of the puzzle that fits in. So we've got all of the other pieces. We've heard the stories of Obama Antichrist. Now we've got this. Does this fit in to the story? Yeah, it does. It's a piece of the puzzle. Here's another one that's kind of disturbing. Yesterday, I saw a video. I didn't want to put it online, but I'm going to tell you about it. Jamie Foxx actually said he was making a reference, and he made a reference to Obama as his Lord and Savior, Barack Obama. Now, I thought Jamie Foxx was an intelligent guy who understood the difference between God and Obama. But apparently, he thinks his Lord and Savior is Barack Obama. Don't know really what to say about that, other than thought he was a smarter guy than that. Apparently, I was wrong. Jamie Foxx, it's blasphemy. Blasphemy, dude. What are you doing? What are you doing? But maybe that's your true colors, right? maybe now you're really letting us know what you think. And maybe all the times that when you mention God, maybe you're really not referencing God. Maybe you've got something else going on, Jamie Foxx. So, shameful. Shameful. Just signs that the world is going into a dark, dark place. Okay. All these stories, don't they seem to kind of add up? We hear the stories of the end times and all the things that are going on. I mean, this seems to fit in, par for the course. It just makes no sense, but I don't know. People are doing it. It seems like the things that are taboo, I mean, is it just me? Or does it seem to you like things that are taboo, people are really making an effort to step past that boundary? It's kind of like testing God. Why does God need to get tested? And who thinks they need to test God? And whoa, if you think you need to test God, okay. But let me know how that works out for you in the end. I'm going to guess that God's going to win that test, and you're going to be on your knees, humbled because of your blasphemy that you're putting out into the world. Anyone who's kind of following that kind of nonsense. All right, moving on. This piece right here, 3-minute news. And it's a good little piece, has a lot of good little information in it. Here we go.
Good morning, folks. We begin with a New York Times article detailing how much land will disappear with sea level rise. If you scroll down, there are dozens of locations, not just these three, and there's a subtle hint of, should we evacuate the East Coast kind of discourse. No, New York. No, you cannot. This is a good article for UK citizens with a similar topic, especially given your recent weather. This image courtesy of the Environmental Visualization Lab. Those who have been here a while know there's a 4 magnitude line in the sand for the Northeast Caribbean, possibly signaling uptick. Luckily, no major activity on the first day of our quake watch. We have red tide in New South Wales, a gas leak in the North Sea. Tropical storm Bopha is feeding off warm water and is becoming fairly powerful. Could be a major typhoon by tomorrow as it makes a beeline for the Philippines. Here's the intensity. Back just briefly to Europe, here comes the cold as it creeps in. On this week's forecast loop, notice the UK, Ireland, and Scotland not as affected. Back to Australia and New Zealand. Well, not really New Zealand. You guys just enjoy that weather right now. Storms are knocking out Aussie's power daily. Take a look at the shape of the pressure convergence over Australia and the warning for more thunderstorms. Large high pressure peak in the center, which means all the air is pushed away. Please check severe weather warnings near the Gulf when they update midday. There will be some. The North Pacific low is creeping ever closer back to the west coast and growing as she does. The effects from California up into Canada will be back in the coming days, also wind advisories and possible flooding. You remember the active region that came out of nowhere. It is now fully developed with lots of central umbra, and having blue and red this close together within the penumbra makes it a Delta-class sunspot. It only has one more day of geo-effectiveness, though. On the northeastern limb, we do have some larger spots swinging in. On the topic of the inconsistent magnetic field, 1500 UTC 2 days ago saw magnetic disturbance, plasma penetration, and induction due to a small spike in the solar wind speed. Well, yesterday morning we took the second CME impact. You can see it on the right. Much more significant, but absolutely no effect, like our shield got called out and stepped up his game. And we had 3 significant eruptions on the sun last night. The first one is hard to see, but a filament below that dark coronal hole ripped away with minimal ejecta, but in an Earth-facing position. Top left, a filament destabilized and released near one of the new active regions, perhaps hailing an uptick to come and hurling a large coronal mass ejection into space that should miss Earth. Finally, the filament below the coronal hole had the northwest portion join its southern brother in ejecting. This could be more geo-effective. As you can see, solar flares are on a slow uptick as the flare watch is in full effect now as well for the next 6 days. Before any of the 3 eruptions from last night arrive, we have this and another CME already headed here. Solar Wind says we're still waiting. Eyes open. No fear. It's 6:08 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Be safe, everyone.
All right, nice little compilation there for everyone. All right, this story here, I thought put this available for you. It's a list of FEMA camps in the United States of America, just in case. Just in case. People need to know. It's over 800 prison camps in the United States, all fully operational and ready to receive prisoners. They are all staffed and even surrounded by full-time guards. but they are all empty. These camps are operated by FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, should martial law need to be implemented in the United States, and all it would take is a presidential signature on a proclamation and the Attorney General's signature on a warrant to which a list of names is attached. Ask yourself if you really want to be on the list. The Rex 84 program was established on the reasoning that if a mass exodus of illegal aliens crossed the United States-Mexican border, they would quickly be rounded up and detained in detention centers by FEMA. Rex 84 allowed many military bases to be closed down and to be turned into prisons. Operation Cable Splicer and Garden Plot are the two sub-programs which will be implemented once the Rex 84 program is initiated for its proper purpose. Garden Plot is the program to control the population. Cable Splicer is the program for an orderly takeover of the state and local governments by the federal government. FEMA is the executive arm of the coming police state and thus will head up all operations. The presidential executive orders already listed on the Federal Register are also a part of the legal framework for this operation. And you can go down and see all the executive orders that allows takeover of all modes of transportation, to seize control of communication, to take over electronic power, gas, petroleum, fuels, on and on. Executive orders taking over everything. And then, of course, here's the list of all the camps and all the states here, so you can go down and just be aware of where these are. So should something come up and people get relocated to these, maybe you can have an idea of where they might be. Okay. You can see the list goes on and covers all the states. So check this list out, and it's not the kind of thing, don't be afraid, don't put the energy out there for these, towards something bad going on. Just be aware. Just be aware. That's kind of part of the process. A lot of times just being aware of a situation is half of the battle, and that provides a big amount of solution, because not being aware, we don't know what's going on, but the moment we become aware of something that it's going on, we start to focus our attention, and it dissipates the effect that whatever the problem is has, because now instead of 100% of the energy fooling you, only 50% is, because you now have a 50% awareness, and that dissipates that. So it goes both ways in that regard. All right, conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura. There was an episode last night. Mark Dice was on that episode. You've heard Mark. I play his pieces from time to time. Talks all about the Illuminati. Anyway, very interesting. Here we go.
This week's episode of Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura mysteriously aired on Monday night instead of on its regularly scheduled time on Wednesday because, well, it's a conspiracy. Or at least it could actually be. This was the 4th episode this season, and this was pretty hardcore. So I wouldn't be surprised if the network just changed the date that the show was supposed to air to throw off the viewers. I was in this week's episode, by the way.
It's reasonable to believe that the compound is also accessible via underground tunnels that span the country and connect numerous important places around the country.
And as you're saying, essentially the Illuminati would use that house as a central command.
Yes, absolutely.
This week's episode was about the mysterious Huff compound that not a lot of people know about. What it is, it's a 72,000 square foot single-family home in Ozark, Missouri, being built by Stephen Huff, a former CIA officer and the founder of Overwatch Systems, a spy company that contracts with the CIA. And this guy is building an enormous bunker and fortress, but the permit says that it's a single-family home, so there wasn't any need for a public hearing. I'm sure someone will post the entire episode on YouTube, and I'll link it up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/MarkDice. But basically, this former CIA agent whose company sells spy information to the government is building this 72,000 square foot fortress in the middle of nowhere as a doomsday bunker in case the apocalypse happens. It's reasonable to believe that if there's some sort of catastrophe, that the underground bases and tunnels that link up different important areas in the country lead to this place, which could then be constituted as a sort of Midwestern White House or a command center to try to reconstitute society. This single-family home is bigger than your average Walmart. It's bigger than the White House. It's bigger than the Spelling Manor in Los Angeles, the most expensive home in America. It appears that this bunker is just one of many elite Illuminati preparations in case there's some kind of a major catastrophe that could serve as a home and a command center for certain elite government officials. Now, we know that tunnel boring machines, TBMs, are used to drill tunnels under the ground for underground rails and subway systems and to drill through mountains for freeways. Now, it's reasonable to believe that this is one of the access points, so in case something happens in another part of the country, the elite Illuminati officials could take the underground tunnel system and travel to the Huff compound. It's not a conspiracy theory that secret government bunkers have been built and that there's underground rail systems that connect them. The Greenbrier Hotel, for example, had a secret bomb shelter built in during renovations and was kept secret for many years until a major reporter blew the whistle on it. It's also interesting that Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism and the author of the fraudulent Book of Mormon, wrote in his Articles of Faith, which is considered scripture by the church, that Jesus would rule from Independence, Missouri, in America as a sister city to Israel, which isn't that far away from the Ozarks and the location of the Huff compound. Subscribe to my Facebook page, facebook.com/MarkDice, and when I find the YouTube video, which I'm sure will be posted of the entire episode, I'll link it up on my page. And remember, it looks like Conspiracy Theory now is on Monday nights, of course, to compete with Monday Night Football, probably anything that the network could do to try to get the viewership down. And it is very suspicious. Call me a crazy conspiracy theorist if I think that they switched the episodes from Wednesday night to Monday night, particularly at the very time that this very interesting, damaging episode about the Huff secret apocalyptic compound was going to air. And if you want something that'll really blow your mind, search YouTube for Mark Dice Phil Schneider, and you'll see my analysis of a man that claims to have discovered and battled aliens in the underground tunnel system. I'm Mark Dice. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Check out some of the previous videos, and there's more on the way.
All right, very good. You notice that the number 72,000. 72, just like in the precession. All right, we've had a lot of crazy weather. Some of the concern is that this weather is being created, not just naturally happening. HAARP technology 2.0 wrecking our environment? That's the question being asked. Are miniaturized versions of the world's largest ionospheric heater all around us modifying the weather? Have electromagnetic frequency program generators been installed over major fault lines waiting to trigger massive earthquakes? Has our military developed a super weapon that can vaporize entire cities with lightning from the ionosphere? Where is evidence that technology exists and there is evidence that this technology exists and is being deployed? Way back in 1995, when the seminal book by Dr. Nick Begich and Gene Manning, Angels Don't Play This HAARP, was released, the punitive inventor of HAARP, Dr. Bernard Eastlund, speculated that it is entirely possible that such technology has already been miniaturized. Aviation Week reported in 2008 that an airborne version of HAARP has been developed, which is towed behind a helicopter. The sea-based X-band radar floating platform utilizes HAARP technology. So, go on and on, more examples. So we've talked in length about videos I played you. So someone's and something is messing with the weather. Now, I brought this up many times, and I'm going to ask for you to search your memory banks. I remember a time in Atlantis. I was back there. I have memories of being back there, and I remember weather manipulation that took place, just like it's going on right now. And all I can think of is that we didn't learn our lesson then, and here we are now messing with the same sort of technology that affected us back then. One of the things. There was a number of things back then, but certainly one of them. Send me an email. Let me know if what I say makes any sense, if you have any memories of anything like that, or if I'm just simply delusional in what I'm thinking. All right? Moving on. This is a really good piece here about the Nephilim. Here we go.
So who were the Nephilim mentioned in the Bible just before the flood of Noah's day? Were they really fallen angels, giants, demon-possessed men, or even aliens from other planets who came to Earth in ancient days? Did these angels or aliens really have sexual relations with humans and cause a race of partial humans that became so evil that God had to destroy the Earth? These explanations are some of the more popular ones, which attempt to explain an admittedly difficult passage found in Genesis chapter 6. The passage reads as follows from the King James Version. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. First, context is extremely important when properly interpreting a biblical text. The word giant in the King James Version is often translated as Nephilim in more modern versions. This is because the exact meaning of the word is a little hard to pinpoint. Nephilim is the Hebrew word used here. The term giant, used by the King James translators, is probably the least accurate, as the original meaning of the word Nephilim means a tyrant or a violent man. Also, the term mighty men from the King James Version more properly translates from the Hebrew word gibor to a warrior, or again, a tyrant. The only other use of the word Nephilim in the entire Bible is found in Numbers, when the 12 spies were sent into the land. The spies reported that they saw violent tyrants in the land, or Nephilim, which the Bible at this point identifies as descendants of Anak, clearly of completely human origins, from Numbers 13. And there we saw the giants, or Nephilim, the sons of Anak, which came of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. The Hebrews, who were small people by comparison to these wicked and violent men, described themselves as feeling small in their presence. Perhaps this is where the idea of giant comes from, but the word Nephilim itself does not really lend itself to the definition of giant. We know of other giants in the Bible, for example, men of probable genetic anomalies. Goliath, who was almost 9 feet tall, comes to mind immediately. No mention is ever made in the scriptures of these other giants as being descendants of angels or demons or space aliens. The term sons of God is apparently the term which throws many people off. The text says that the sons of God married and bore children from the daughters of men. The term sons of God is used in one place in the scriptures, Job 1:6, as a term for angelic beings. However, the term sons of God is also used to describe the children of Israel, or God's people, in the book of Hosea and several places in the Psalms. The term sons of God is used prolifically in the New Testament, and in every single instance, the term means believers in Jesus Christ, or those who belong to the Lord. It is also a well-known historical fact that in the Old Testament biblical days, rulers in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia often proclaim themselves as sons of God to enhance their power and prestige. So you see, the term has several biblical and historical meanings, the very least of which, and the most obscure, is to identify the term sons of God with angelic beings in every case. The idea of angels or demons or space beings mating with humans is found in much mythology and paganism. Biblical roots, however, for such teaching is in reality non-existent. So the biblical text in Genesis 6 is obviously communicating here, in context, that in the days of Noah, the earth had become filled with violent thugs and tyrants ruling and destroying by strength, terror, and bloodshed. There is no mention of angels or demons or space aliens. The very next verse, verse 5, bears out this proper contextual interpretation. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination or the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Again, no mention of demons, angels, or space aliens. It becomes apparent then that Moses, in giving a sweeping overview of perhaps many hundreds of years of human history just before the flood, is simply making the point that godly men abandoned their commitment to God and took pagan wives. Over much time, this spiritual degeneration of the culture resulted in a violent culture ruled by terrorists and violent thugs. Does this sound strangely familiar? It was this overt spiritual degeneration of the culture that brought God's ultimate hand of judgment upon the earth. The Bible says these same days are coming again, and so is God's great and final judgment. You can escape this coming judgment by surrendering your life to Jesus Christ and by calling upon Him as Lord for your salvation.
So very interesting, huh? So here we are in these times. Don't we have terrorists, violent terrorists running around? Even worse, these violent terrorists are in the actual governments that are supposed to be helping people. So it's shameful, whether it's in the United States or whether it's in other countries around the world. The terrorists are in the government and they're terrorizing the people. Now, we're also in the same time period where we're giving and have all these thoughts of what's going to go on in the next 24 days during this period of time we're in. And concerns about a pole shift and flooding is all right here as well. So again, we've come full circle. You see, when we don't deal with lessons, sometimes the lessons come back around, so we have to deal with them again. Here we are, dealing with this lesson again, in my opinion, just like in Atlantis. We need to rethink what we're doing, and we need to do it really quick, because we made some mistakes back then, and we've made the same mistakes now. And I think it's very important that everybody gets good with their soul and gets good with what's going on inside of them, because there's some changes going on, and we may all be held accountable for our own activities and things that we've done and said. So, I think of this as a positive time, a cleansing of all of the nonsense, cleansing of all of the garbage and the negativity that's out there. We'll see what happens. All right, we shall see. All right, one last piece here before the meditation. I wanted to play this because this guy, he does the spirit works. This guy's always so positive, and well, that's what we need in the world today, positivity. So here we go.
Happy living lifestyle tip for the day. 33% of your day should be spent giving to yourself. 33% of your day should be spent doing the things that you want to do, creating what you want to create. And the final 33% should be doing things that add value to others' lives. Because we want to get into a habit of giving to others and sharing with each other and giving of ourselves. And so if we give freely, knowing that it's going to increase the value and not expecting anything in return to others, then it's going to really start to transform the way that we do things. Because it's just going to keep happening and more people are going to keep doing it, and then pretty much soon everybody just works on this kind of giving basis where nobody needs to receive anything. The other 66% are actually more about you. Watch a movie, or read a book, or meditate, or give to yourself in whatever way that means. And then the other 33 is creating something that you want to create. So this also goes to ask yourself, what is it that you want to make? What is it that you want to create? What change do you want to see in the world? And then why not go and be that? And that's it. That's all you need. And it doesn't have to be every single day like that. You could do one day. Just give to yourself. Meditate the entire day. Read the entire day. Whatever you want. The second day is just create what you want to create. And the third day is like going to work and going and adding value to other people's lives. And also just acknowledge that who are you really adding value to? Are you creating for an institution that gives nothing back? If you work at McDonald's, I'm talking to you. Or do you work for people? Work for others. Work for the sake of giving. And even if it doesn't return much to you, that's okay. Because there's still something to learn from that. And that's all I got.
Alright, very good. So, it's good positive stuff, right? Hey man, the more positive stuff we hear, the better. We're going through an important time, and it's about positivity. Alright, let's do our meditation for today, so go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Exhale. Alright, let's imagine ourselves at the zoo. And we're walking through the zoo, and we're seeing all of the animals in the cages. And as we see all the animals, it reminds us of how life reflects back to us exactly what we need to know. And as we look at the animals in the cages, it makes us think of ourselves and the cages that we are trapped in. And we look at the animals and we see that they are not happy in the cages. And we realize that as a species on this planet, we ourselves are not happy in the cages we are in. And when we think about it, we realize the only cage we're in is the one that we've put ourselves in. So we imagine that we open our hand and we look in it, and there, in the palm of our hand, is a key. And we use this key to reach out and unlock an invisible door. The invisible door to the cage that locks us in. And as we push this door open and step out of the cage, the world takes on a whole new look. It becomes brighter and more vibrant. The sounds are clearer and more fulfilling. The smells are more intense and pleasurable. And everything that you experience outside of the cage is different. And as you look around, you see others unlocking the doors to their cages and stepping out. And as one by one everyone unlocks the cages and steps out of their own prisons, we see that the power of the people grows stronger. We see that those involved with leadership have failed the people and have knowingly or unknowingly locked people in the cages. And as the people free themselves, those who provided the cages lessen in power until eventually balance is restored. So as you're walking through life free, imagine all of your chakras are activated from the bottom of the spine up. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and indigo. Honor your connection to all the energy that flows through you. The energy from the present, from the past, and from the future. And let's send out love all around the planet to each and every individual, down into the earth. Let's tell the earth, Mother Earth, we know that she is going through her process of change. And we send this love down to assist. And we ask to be in communication with the earth so we know where we need to be in any moments when she decides to stretch or move. And as we listen to the earth, we hear the sound of the earth smiling, and we feel the love of the earth filling us. And we understand this connection is how it is supposed to be. So as we hold that thought in our mind and in our heart, let us bring our energy and attention back to the present moment. On the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Alright, that's it. We've made it through another show. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much. 24 days away. What will the next 24 days hold, and what will happen after there? That's the question we're all waiting to find out. But I think we're going to be in for a good ride, and we just need to focus on the love, because there's been so many things about this period that have been talked about, very positive. We just have to separate the negative from the positive and focus on that. Focus on the positive. Let the negative drift away. The key to it all is love. Take that with you and hold it in your heart and share it with everyone. I'll be back tomorrow, my friends. Till then, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.